Oh, hello. My name is Mara, and welcome to Books Like Whoa. Okay, guys, so I decided to film today because I had to go to the eye doctor, and she didn't dilate my eyes. Like, I told her, hey, I have to drive, like, you can't dilate my eyes. But she did something that has made my pupils enormous, and I don't know if you guys can tell, but it means that I can't really, like, if I have my glasses on, I can't read, and if I don't have my glasses on, I can't see anything far away. So it's like my eyes cannot shift focus correctly. So one of the only things that sounded doable to me was to just sort of blindly talk to you guys here on the channel. So that is what I am doing. And yeah, today we are going to do my 3 mystery review series for a Christmas theme. So ho 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 bitches, welcome to Christmas season. Got my Christmas sweater on in celebration. And we are going to talk about 3 isolated closed circle mysteries, all of which, at least to some degree or another, have to do with Christmas, and definitely all have like a snowed in component to them. So all 3 of these are pretty different, and I will say that this is probably not my stronger batch of ones I've reviewed, because I wouldn't say I loved any of these, but 2 of them I definitely at least had a good time with, and the other I had been curious about, so glad to just sort of know my thoughts about it. But the 3 books that we are going to talk about today include In the Hall with the Knife by Diana Peterfreund. This is a YA mystery based on, like, it's an adaptation of the board game Clue/Cluedo. So that one was published in 2019 this year. We have Another Little Christmas Murder by Lorna, Nicholl, Morgan, which was published in 1947 and is a classic English golden age of detective fiction kind of thing. And then we have A Christmas Party by Georgette, which was written in 1941. And Georgette was primarily known to me as a big writer of Regency romances, a la kind of like in the same style of Jane Austen, but in the 40s. And she also wrote a bunch of mysteries, it turns out. So those are the 3 books we are going to talk about. I will start by comparing them and talking about what is similar and different for each of them, a little mini spoiler-free review of each one. Okay, so like I said, the thing that ties all of these together is that they are in some way related to Christmas, and they also, the isolated closed circle piece is being driven by the fact that they are all snowed in to these big manor houses. And I should just mention, if you've never seen one of these reviews before, an isolated closed circle mystery, you can think of the movie Clue or the board game Clue / the book And Then There Were None. A setup where a bunch of people are trapped together, they cannot leave, people start dying, they have to figure out who done it. And so that's like the main trope that I'm looking for in these reviews. Some of these end up being more what I would call isolated closed circle adjacent ones, where they are almost an isolated closed circle mystery, but there's like one little piece that's a little bit off. Of these 3, I would say this is, I guess, the only one that is truly an isolated closed circle mystery. This one is basically pretty much truly an isolated closed circle mystery. There's a little bit of coming and going in the snowstorm, but mostly like they can't really get around very well. And then this one has too much coming and going for it to be really fully an isolated closed circle mystery. So this is the order of true adherence to the trope right here. I will say that these 2 are much more explicitly Christmas books, versus In the Hall with a Knife is set at an exclusive boarding school that is breaking for the holidays, and that's when this like blizzard of the century sets in, and so they are all stuck at the big fancy house that is a part of the boarding school grounds over a Christmas break. So this one is the least Christmassy of the 3. I would say obviously these 2 are both the ones that are more like classic mysteries, versus In the Hall with a Knife is more of a contemporary since it was written this year. These are both classic mysteries, and they also have, I would say, very similar setups in terms of it's the classic trope in this type of book where there's a rich old relative and it's Christmas time and people are coming home kind of a thing. It's been interesting as I've been reading more and more specifically in this genre in like a concentrated kind of way, how I'm seeing a lot of recurring, like even micro elements, which I won't be able to fully get into because it would start to get spoilery, not only for these books, but for other books. So I won't specifically comment on things that these books are doing that kind of fall into that into that bucket. Maybe at some point I will do like a grand roundup and talk about like common plot beats, common character types, common like obfuscation tricks sort of thing. But anyway, I think that that gives you sort of an overview of what these 3 books are. I will tell you in terms of my enjoyment, well, this one is definitely my least favorite. I gave this 3 stars. It was fine, but not my favorite. These 2 I definitely enjoyed more, and I'm hard pressed to tell you which one I liked better. I think just for the sort of gee whiz, like enjoyment, freshness factor, probably In the Hall with the Knife is my favorite of the 3, but I quite like this one, and I think if it had a couple of things a little bit different about it, it could have been 4 stars. So let me give you my thoughts about each of these. A Christmas Party by Georgette Hare. I guess there's not a lot for me to tell you about this one other than this just felt kind of bland. That's a good word. I just didn't feel like there was a lot special about this book, and that's why I ended up giving it 3 stars. I think that there's some interesting character stuff happening in this. There's like I say that, but there are a lot of tropes here of the sort of like dumb, clueless uncle, the super rich old guy who everybody hates, who obviously is going to be the one who's going to get murdered because all of his relatives are clamoring for his riches, and that's clearly what the motive is going to be. There is the like rapscallion younger generation. There's the aspiring actress who's a potential heiress. I mean, there's just a lot of sort of like worn character types, and I can get down with that. Like, there's a reason why they're worn, they're comfy, they have a certain appeal. I'm not mad at it per se, but coupled with a writing style that really just personally did not click for me, this ended up being kind of a letdown. I would call this probably a disappointment. I just didn't know what to expect, but people love her books so much that I was really hoping I was gonna like this. I just don't like her authorial voice at all. It's kind of icy and remote. And that like, if you are looking for a Christmas mystery, if this is the kind of book you know you're gonna like, I wouldn't like steer you away from it. I think it's a perfectly fine way to pass some time, but I just don't think there's really anything that special about this. And the ending, there's like a kind of a little bit of a romantic subplot, and I just really wasn't into that. So anyway, this was 3 stars, fine, but just not. It's definitely my least favorite of these 3 that I've read recently. Okay, and then I'm gonna say that Another Christmas Murder by Lorna Nicholl Morgan is gonna be the next one, and I gave it 3.5 stars, and it's actually kind of an opposite problem of what I would say my issue with A Christmas Murder is, or not opposite problem, but an opposite situation where I really liked the authorial voice in this one a lot. It was much more readable. I think what Georgette Hare was reminding me the whole time I was reading it was Agatha Christie's prose is really just what sets her apart in this era, because it's just so readable and she has just such a specific style that really works for the kind of story. And Lorna Nicholl Morgan, a very high note of praise, much more reminds me of Agatha Christie's prose style in terms of it is very light, it moves along nicely. There's a certain humor in the authorial voice. The main character, pretty much the main character, is a lady traveling salesperson named Dilys. And I will say that Dilys seems to be a 1940s version of an MLM Hun bot. I don't know. She is selling like questionable medicines. And there's like a whole plot line about that. Anyway, that was a little like interesting to think about. But anyway, leaving that to the side, I really liked Dilys. She was very spunky. She was a fun person to be spending most of our time with. And then the other kind of main character is this guy named Inigo Brown. And he is the kind of long lost nephew coming back to his uncle's Yorkshire estate at his uncle's behest. And he encounters Dilys on the road there. There's this like crazy, terrible snowstorm. She's like, pulls over to the side of the road and she's like perched on the edge of this ledge she didn't realize. So he, takes her along with him to his uncle's house. And when they get there, things are just weird. And there keep being more and more strangers who have gotten stuck in the snow and basically are like walking and making their way to the house, and things progress from there. Like I said, there's a rich old uncle, so I bet you can guess who the corpse is, but his wife is kind of strange, his butler, like everybody in this house is just, there's something weird going on, and Dilys is on the case immediately. She senses it, and she's like trying to figure out what's going on. So like I said, I think that the just general tone and voice of this one carried a lot for me, as did the characters. What kept this from being a 4-star for me is that towards the end, there's a lot of action happening, and I just feel like it was communicated in a way that was quite muddled. Like, it was hard for me to figure out exactly what was going on, and I was having a hard time keeping track of who all the characters were and like where they were in the house. So it just became, I was having to focus too much to figure out what was even really going on. So some of the sort of just like very like the mechanics of moving people through time and space was a little lacking in the back half of this book for me, and that diminished my enjoyment. But like I said, this made me very intrigued to try something else from her because I very much enjoyed the writing in this. And I think if you were looking for more of like a classic Christmas mystery for this time of year, I would definitely recommend this one over A Christmas Party. I like this one a lot better. And this one does have, it felt very like snowy, and I don't know, it evoked the season, I think, pretty well, as did A Christmas Party, to be fair. I think it did too. So I would recommend this one over A Christmas Party, but I will say that I think the one that I like best was the contemporary one. Oh, and sorry, side note, before I leave this one, I do just want to also mention, there is a thread of this that I cannot fully talk to you about because it would be spoilers, but it was bonkers, and I very much enjoyed that being the sort of like piece, like one of the key pieces that came together at the end. It was a lot, and it was really interesting. So that added another little piece of interest. Okay, and then finally, In the Hall with the Knife by Diana Peterfreund. I should tell you that I believe that this is the first in a trilogy of YA mysteries that are adapting the story of Clue. So we have all of our usual suspects. We have Mr., well, what are they called in this one? Beth Piaka, Orchid McGee, Vaughn Green, Sam Mustard, Master, Finn Plum, and Scarlet Mystery. And then they also have a like a nanny kind of figure named Mrs. White, like a girl's, she's like the dorm monitor. Flame, flame, flames on the side of my face, breathing breaths, heaving breaths, heaving breaths, Mrs. White, and then Mr. Body is the headmaster of this elite boarding school. So all of those characters are going to this boarding school. It is known basically for sort of its like science and innovation kind of stuff. Like it's sort of a STEM boarding school that has produced a bunch of really great inventors. It is set in rural Maine, and the storm of the century is descending upon them. Honestly, the way that the blizzard is described in this like was scary as fuck. I was like, this is the actual snowpocalypse. This is a lot. So, you know, there's all these like hardy townies basically who live in a nearby village, and they kind of all poo-poo the elite boarding school people. Vaughn Green is from the town, but he actually goes to the boarding school, so he like fights his way back to the campus because he's wanting to make sure that they're all going to be okay. And quickly there's all of this flooding that's happening throughout the campus, so they all end up going to this one girl's dormitory, which used to be this like big manor house, and they're all there, and then somebody dies. If you've played the board game, I bet you can guess who died. So yeah, this was basically just a really fun YA mystery that had what my all-time favorite trope in it. I felt like that this knew what it was and sort of had a good time with it. And that's really what I'm looking for from books like this. You know, I'm not expecting it to be like my next favorite mystery, but it's a really fun setup, and it's an adaptation of a fun property. And Diana Peterfreund knows that and just like goes for it. So I think that this is just like really enjoyable. If you like this kind of trope, if you know that board game, I think you're gonna have a perfectly good time reading this. That, like I said, this is gonna be a trilogy. I plan to continue in the trilogy because there was enough set up in this one. There's an actual specific murder that happens, and then there's some overall kind of like bigger plot elements that are put into play that I'm curious to see where they go. So, I mean, this did its job in terms of giving me a satisfying mystery in this one, and it made me intrigued to keep going with it. So this is the least Christmassy of the three. It technically is set over Christmas break though, so I felt like it fit the theme, but it is very wintry. So if you were looking for a wintry mystery to tuck in with this holiday season, this one I think would fit the bill. And like I said, I think it's the one that I enjoyed the most. So I did really have a good time with Another Little Christmas Murder. Both of these were just like fun. So there you go. Those are my thoughts on 3 isolated closed circle mysteries that are Christmas related in some way. Thought that was appropriate for this holiday season. So like I said, ho ho ho. I hope you guys are having a good Christmas break. This is a good time of year to tuck in with some wintry mysteries. So if you're planning on doing that, I wish you lots of cozy, scary reading. And yeah, I think that that will do it. So let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these, what your thoughts were, or if you have any recommendations for some of your favorite Christmas related mysteries. And yeah, I think that that will do it for now. So if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, follow me on the social medias if you are so inclined. I have all that information listed in the description box below, and I think that will do it. I hope you guys are having an absolutely lovely day, and I will just talk to you soon. Bye. How can we send him outside in this weather? If we let him stay in the house, he may get suspicious. If we make him go out, he may get even more suspicious. If I were him, I would be suspicious already. Oh, who cares? Let him stay, locked up for another half an hour. The police will be here by then, and there are 2 dead bodies in the study. Shh.